Hi, this is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She has a family and real estate law firm out in the Worcester area, and we are going to be talking about relationships between parents and children. And if you're having trouble with that, here are some ideas of how you can repair those relationships. Welcome, Nicole. This is a tough topic for a lot of people.
Absolutely, it is, but it's something that people just want what they want when they want it. So hopefully we can give you some insight so you can actually get to that point where your relationship is better.
I agree. And this is not unlike most relationships. So I think that the ingredients that we're going to talk about today can be applied in a number of situations. But let's talk about how relationships break down. What are some of the things that you've seen? Because I know that these heartbreaking conversations happen with you all the time with your clients, because divorce is tough and it puts on a strain that just anyone having a regular type of life doesn't have to deal with. And so this is just a whole nother layer of stress that you can have in life. So what are these steps?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that it breaks down. I mean, obviously, it could be something that, a parent has a drug or alcohol problem. So they just neglect the child because, the drugs or alcohol are more important. Sometimes it's saying something inappropriate. It's just one of those things that you just can't take back. As an adult, you kind of go, yeah, he's a jackass, moving on. And you can get over it. But as a kid, if your parent is saying something that's negative, whether it be about your body image or about your sexuality or about, just you being fat or, I mean, there's so many plethora of things that people can come up with. It's one of those things that you really have to go, why did it break down? But those are big reasons. Lack of time. If you decide, I'm going to go off and pay attention to my other family, or I moved out of the state and I'm now in California and I only get to see you that time. Any of those things are going to be a cause in a breakdown in a relationship. The question is, how much of a breakdown is it going to be, and what can we do to bring that back to a relationship? It's not an overnight thing, and so also often everyone wants to just go, well, we had a week on, week off. Well, great, but you haven't seen the kid in 5 years. What makes you think that that's going to be plausible now?
I mean, I think that that's true. And hey, we're all human. When you're going through a life change like divorce or, whatever it might be, maybe it's just a breakup of a relationship, uh, you tend to go try to make friends, try to go out, try to distract yourself from maybe the depression you're dealing with, but those kids are still there. No matter what you do, the kids are still there and they're probably feeling it too, especially if you're feeling it. There's a sort of empathy that happens there and they can feel everything that you feel. So you have to be cognizant of that.
Not only that, but you also have to be cognizant of what you're saying. Because again, when you're feeling bad and you're saying, oh, I'm not loved, and your father keeps saying I'm a piece of crap and things of that nature, they're hearing that. They're internalizing all of that too. So everything that you say, even if it's about yourself, and even if you're saying it to your girlfriend on the phone, the simple fact of the matter is prying ears are going to hear it, and they're also going to internalize it.
And that always ends up happening. It's almost hard to avoid. However, you have to try your best. Go to the garage where people can't hear through the cement. I don't know what it is that you have to do, but it's definitely something that you got to be aware of. Now, when we're talking about this, I mean, certainly kids don't always want to spend time with one parent. It might be that they've just had a better relationship with one parent and the other one is just, they work a lot and they're just not around. What happens if the kids don't want to spend time with the other parent during their assigned parenting time?
Well, I think the big question is again, why? Is it because I'm a 16-year-old and my parents are jerks? And oh my God, they're going to embarrass me and I can't even deal with them. Do you look at them? Is it one of those situations, or is it I'm 10 years old and I saw mommy being hit or hitting somebody, and now I'm afraid that that situation is going to happen again? I mean, you really got to figure out what that underlying issue is to figure out if you can address it. Now, obviously, if it's the first one and you're a 16-year-old, then chances are you should be happy that you're spending any time with your children. Simple fact of the matter is, great. The fact that they like you when they want to spend any time with you is a great thing. Obviously, the more the merrier. But it's really hard for a lot of parents because I have this parenting time. I'm entitled to this. You make that happen, mom. And you're going, great. How do I pick up my 6 foot, 250-pound kid to put him in the car? It doesn't happen, right? I mean, you're in a situation that, like, all I can do is encourage him and try to get him to even get out the door, let alone get in a car with somebody. So I think the older it gets, the harder it's going to be for anybody to force their children, if you will, to have that relationship and to keep that parenting time. For the younger ones, again, we have to look at that underlying issue. Is there some issue that mom or dad is doing? Something that's inappropriate, something that scared them, something that put them in a situation that they didn't feel comfortable for whatever reason. The ideal goal is to address whatever that was, make sure that both parents are aware of it. Maybe you need some counseling, maybe you need something else to make that child feel comfortable. Maybe it's a third party being present. So again, what happened and how can we help that situation so that that child doesn't feel that way? Because again, sometimes it's legitimate stuff. Sometimes it's just really nothing happened, honey. It's okay. Sometimes it's just, I can't tell mommy how I feel. I don't, she's going to make me feel bad. And that's the hardest one to deal with, because when you have that situation and somebody's afraid to tell you and the results are, well, mom's going to feel bad. I don't want her to feel bad. I love my mother. I want to please her. I want to make her happy. So I just keep my mouth shut. And then dad's going, do you know what happened over there? Oh my God, we got to fix this. And you're going, okay, but I'm not hearing it from the other side. That really creates a problem too, because now the parents are fighting because that doesn't really happen. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. And so you have the he said, she said. And of course, the only person that can do anything about it is the child, which the child unfortunately needs to articulate in some fashion. Again, maybe it's not telling that parent, but somebody needs to speak up for that child, and that's probably the hardest part.
The saddest thing about everything that you just said is that you are speaking directly to the hearts of so many people that are dealing with this exact situation. I mean, you know about it, you hear about it all the time, and that's why you can do it. And that's really sad. And it's sad for kids that just you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings and maybe a little bit afraid of a parent. And so they tell the other parent may want to stick up for their kid. And then there is, the fight ensues and people are called liars and back and forth. And the only way to really fix it is to have, go get the story from the horse's mouth. But then you're back to stage one where they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So it's just a round and around and around. And I mean, how do you fix that? What do you do?
I think the first thing, and I see this all so often. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times judges hear this and they go, so are you calling your child a liar? And as a parent, you're going, well, it didn't happen that way. So you're calling your parent a liar or your child's a liar. And I mean, what do you say to the judge? Yes, I'm calling my child a liar. The reality is, regardless of whether the child is really justified or not, that situation exists. So I think the first thing you have to do as a parent, especially in that situation, is acknowledge it. I think Sally's out of her mind. I think she's making this up. But notwithstanding that, I want to fix it. So how do I fix it? And that's really where you have to go as a mindset. And I get that you're going, but it's not true, Nicole. I get it. But Sally, whether she believes it because mommy's telling her the story, or she believes it because she really believes it, or more importantly, she believes it because it actually happened, really is irrelevant. Sally's believing that at the moment. So, let's talk about ways that we can do counseling. Let's talk about ways that we can get ARC involved or GAL involved. Or let's talk about, hey, look, she's always loved Aunt Susie. Maybe we talk to her and see that, she can sit down, and maybe the three of us can sit down and talk together. Find that common ground that your child is capable and willing to talk to somebody. And again, even if it's not like completely unfounded, like I was sleeping, I wasn't passed out drunk, but I had a side effect to my medication. 10-year-old child's not going to understand that. They know that you're drunk, and they know that those are the symptoms, right? So they're not going to believe you. And unfortunately, that's a scary situation. But don't tell your kid that. Again, just say, I'm sorry you had to see that, honey. I had a reaction, and I'm doing everything I can. I'm talking to the doctors. Own up to it. Again, not owning up to the full degree, but you're owning up to it, so the child goes, oh, again, you make me take responsibility. Why don't you take responsibility? And that's what they see, because that's what they're learning. So you want to own those things to a certain degree and acknowledge them, because then your child can get over it. If you don't acknowledge it and you're calling them a liar, all they're going to hear is, you're a liar. You don't believe a word I'm saying. Why do I even bother to talk to you? And now that relationship is deteriorating rather than growing.
That is really interesting you say that, because I just had this book that I listened to, just went on a long road trip with my daughter, and we were listening to this story of this book about 10-year-old things that 10-year-olds should know. And one of them is how not to lie. Because every kid wants to just do that. And it's amazing how many adults do it, where it's like, oh, you got caught doing something, somebody called you out, and then that didn't happen. No, you're lying. Like, oh, well, they say to the children in the book, just admit it, say you're sorry, and then come up with a solution. Because it's easy to say something didn't happen, or to ignore something. Oh, the dog just got out, but I don't want to tell anyone because I don't want to get in trouble. Well, hey, the longer you wait to tell someone, the longer it's going to take for you to get help to fix this horrible issue that you may never see your dog again. So, I mean, it was an interesting example that they gave. But I find that with adults, there are adults out there that don't know how to do the adult thing and just say, I'm sorry, let's start again. Let's do something different so that the situation doesn't have to keep happening. Instead, they just say, no, you did it.
Exactly. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all have to own up to it. Sometimes the mistakes are larger than others. And sometimes it's just, again, I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. I would have never said that if I had known that. I didn't mean anything about it. I mean, you talk about people with body image issues. You look beautiful today. Don't say that. That means I look ugly other days. And again, that's their mentality. That's where they're going with it. So you just said, you paid them a compliment, right? You're doing a nice thing. And they just said, oh my God, I look ugly yesterday. Oh my God, I need to lose weight. Oh my. And this is what happens. And the problem is, again, because you're not a psychologist, because you don't know these things, you just think you're doing something nice. Where they say, oh no, just tell them you like that outfit. Oh, okay. I like the color of the dress. Like, you have to say something very generic like that. Again, it goes back to, you need to know your audience. So again, if you had no ill will and you said you look beautiful today, and I took it the wrong way, and now I don't want to see you ever again, how do you fix that? You fix that by owning up to, yep, I said it. Did I mean it in that context? Absolutely not. I'm sorry you took it that way. But what can I do? What words, Erica, can I use that I'm not going to make you feel that way? And that's a dialogue that you have to have.
Well, I mean, and two, when you look at those things you're saying to people, are you saying it in person or like over FaceTime where people can see your expressions and understand what you're saying? Or are you totally going to get misconstrued by sending something over a text? Things can really explode fast. Most fights that happen over text just end terribly.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one thing I like about certain apps like our Family Wizard, where it has that tone meter. Like, are you really saying this for the right reasons? And things of that nature. But again, in real life, we don't have those on text. So when you're saying something, or I just happen to not be paying attention and I hit cap lock and I'm shouting at you, right? I'm not shouting at you. It's because I was too lazy to go back, or I hit send before I realized it. That's all it is. But again, you think I'm yelling at you, and I'm not. I apologize. And so I write back and go, sorry, I didn't mean cap lock. And then you go, yeah, really. And now we've created a drama over something simple like, I'm sorry, I hit a button and I was ignorant and didn't look at it. I mean, come on, people.
So I know you mentioned counseling as one of the things that can help out. Are you have you had a lot of experience with kids that go to counseling? Are they going with their parents to help repair those relationships? How does it work?
I think, in all actuality, a child should probably have their own counselor, and then we should have a family counselor. And that family counselor can be one parent or both parents. Usually, I leave that portion of it to the discretion of the counselors. A lot of times, they will like to do it call it family therapy, where again, that child has their own individual counselor. So I can talk to my counselor, I can tell them anything. I know it's not going to be told to anyone else. And then we have the family counseling, where again, the family counselor will talk to the child's individual counselor, so at least they can work together to resolve those issues. But more importantly, the family counseling can still take place, and we can work through the issues based off of what the child's saying in a different forum. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can do it. I think the most beneficial is when you have the individual counseling as well as the family counseling. And the family counseling, again, doesn't mean mom and dad and child are in the same room together. No, 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 no. That very rarely happens. It's usually mom and child one week and dad and child the next week, or mom and child for the next 10 weeks, and then we'll do mom and dad, or mom and child. So we'll change that up, but it's going to be based off of what the counselor wants and what is going on and how we can resolve those issues. Because again, we have to know what the underlying root of the child's issues are. And then we need to figure out, we need to get both parents on the same page eventually to say, hey, look, this is the best way to solve that problem. But mom's way to solve it may be different than dad's way of solving it, just because they're living in different households. Maybe they have different parenting styles. Maybe there's no way in the world that they would ever be able to say something like that. So again, we want to do it in a different space.
So let's talk about parents that kids that refuse to see their parents. So you mentioned something interesting earlier where you're like, it's a 250-pound kid. That is so true. I know some kids that are family members that are huge and actually into MMA. And it's like at one point didn't want to go to school. And it's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm 5'4". And I'm like, how am I going to get this kid who could take anyone down? Not that they would, but they're really young. They just are very developed already and they actually work at it. So you have down here that maybe FaceTime and phone calls could work. Have you seen it work well in this type of a situation?
I think anything that you can do to facilitate that communication between parent and child is going to be beneficial. So, yes, I absolutely recommend that, just because the child is uncomfortable seeing you because they witnessed an abuse, great. Well, let's put you on a FaceTime or a phone call where one, you can't see it, or two, I'm in an environment and you're safe. You know that there's not going to be somebody running through the house with a machete, right? You know that because you're in the safe confines of your own house. So there's things like that. It's, again, what is that relationship going to look like? How can I build that relationship? Certain cases where I haven't seen my father in 5 years, I don't even know him. Why would I want to see this complete stranger? That's a great way to reintroduce. You start with a phone call, and the phone call might be 2 or 3 minutes, it might be 30 seconds, but it might be longer. And as time goes on, again, as a parent, you're going to say, oh, what'd you do today? What you like doing? What are you interested in? What's your hobbies? Well, what's your favorite thing to do on the weekend? What's your color? You're basically on a first date, right? You're asking all those questions to get to know them. And if you're paying attention, hopefully you're taking down notes so you can at least expand on that. Oh, I know you really like, SpongeBob. I'm going to get them something and just send them over a $5 gift. Great. Again, now you're doing something to build that relationship. If you're doing a FaceTime, what does the background look like? What is the color of their room if they're in their room? What are the toys? I mean, they're going to say, what are you doing? You're probably sitting on your bed, right? So, hey, can you give me a show around your room? Oh, sure. Have something like that where you have a conversation. Oh, I like that lamp. Can you tell me about it? What's that painting on the wall? Whatever it is, have that conversation. You start having a little bit of interactions. And again, even if it's only a 2-minute conversation, you're going to start building it. Now, the big thing with this is you can't stop. All too often, we go all these expansive times, and I didn't see you for 5 years. Okay, great. So you had 3 phone calls and you ran into court and you wanted joint parenting time, and my mom said no, and then you dropped off the planet again. 1, you're going to give this child a complex. 2, you're going to make them feel bad that they did something wrong. And 3, obviously they don't care about them. Don't do it if you're not invested. Don't waste the time. And I have to be honest, like so often people do that. And if you're not willing to put in the time, this is a relationship. You have this child. You should be expecting to have this relationship your entire life. It's not, oh, look, I dated somebody for a year and I'm done. No, this is a lifetime commitment. Treat it as that, because all you're doing is hurting that child. So if you're going to do it, and if you're going to come back, great, but be committed to coming back till the next 18 years.
I mean, the big challenge that you mentioned earlier too with this is that we are in an instant gratification kind of a lifestyle, and people expect results, results, results now. Oh, if I take this pill, I can lose this amount of weight. Or if I take this pill, I can concentrate better. Or I can stay awake. Whatever it is, there's a pill for everything. There's one little process and then you've got your results. They just get spit out magically. But that's not the case with relationships. So in your experience, and I know it probably varies greatly from person to person, but how long does this take? I know a lifetime is, but that might be too long for some people to wait.
It really is. And again, it depends on how committed you are and how much you can focus on what's important. I hate to say things like this, but it's one of those things that I'm like, I hopefully am settling a case this week that has been ongoing for the last 5 years because there was no parenting time, and now we're increasing it and we're going to a different step. The problem is, why is it taking that long? Because one person does something stupid and we have setbacks, and then we do really well, and then we're almost settling it, and then we have setbacks, and then we're doing really well, and then we have setbacks. And so again, it is a lifetime commitment, and you have to be willing to make that commitment. Sometimes it's, hey, I did it right the first time around. I did my steps, and generally speaking, if you're going through the phone calls or the FaceTime, then you go to day visits, then you go to overnight visits, then you go to multiple day visits, and maybe even graduate up at some point to week-long vacation. But in a perfect world, that alone is probably going to take a year and a half. So it's not that instant gratification. Again, it depends on how comfortable this child is, what the age of this child is. All of those things are going to be factors, whether or not this child had a relationship with you, or if they haven't seen you for the first 6 years of their life and they have no idea who you are. You're a complete stranger. So again, look in those circumstances. But I would say instant gratification minimum is going to be a year and a half. Could it be shorter? Sure. But that's at least the expectation I'm going to set with you. And again, once I know your particular case, it might be 3-4 years. Maybe it'll be less. But again, we need to know that situation.
Hey, when you're dealing with family court, get rid of your instant gratification expectation. Things take a long time in that case too, but certainly with the relationships that you haven't had for a while, it really does. So let's talk about like how long does the case remain pending. Does it remain pending the whole time you're working on the relationship in order to increase your parenting time? Or do they put it on pause or settle it for a while and then go back and try to change it? But how does it typically work?
All of the above. That's the simple answer. It really depends on the circumstances and how much you want to go in that first step. Again, if you're seeking, this is, hey, look, I haven't been in this child's life for 5 years. I'm just now filing a complaint, and I haven't even established paternity. Well, then obviously it's going to be a little bit longer versus, hey, I screwed up. I fell off the wagon. I've now been sober for 9 months and I want to see my kid again. So again, we have to look at those circumstances. The long and short is anywhere from 8 months to, 14 months is the track from the court's perspective. But again, it's going to take however long it takes. So certain times you're going to go, okay, fine, I screwed up. We saw each other. We've now been, I've been clean and sober for a year. We're going to resume our parenting time. Hey, this was one isolated incident. I kicked the deadbeat out of my house. I'm never seeing him again. I promise as long as I never see him again, we're going to resume our parenting time. Yeah, great. 30 days. Again, depends on the circumstances. Sometimes it's, hey, let's see if we can go back to this schedule. We'll do it a trial period for 3 months. And sometimes you want to make that a final judgment, but sometimes you only want to do it on a temporary basis. And then in 3 months, you go back and you go, yeah, this is working. Let's go back and have a final judgment. So it's a multitude of options there. It really depends on what you're comfortable with, what the other party's comfortable with, and more importantly, what the child's comfortable with.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, one thing that's crazy about relationships is sometimes something happens out of the blue and it changes everything. And you think you're making progress, and then all of a sudden, nothing. I know several cases of people I know where they decided they want to go live with the other parent, and then 9 months later they come back. Heck, my sister did that when she was really young to my mom, killed her, and then she came back. Those things happen all the time. And even after having a bad relationship with a parent, all of a sudden you want to go live with them again because the grass is greener. I mean, do you see a lot of that? Because I personally know of 2 cases now in my life, and I'm not even involved in this every day.
Absolutely. And I think that's the reason why, again, a lot of times we're going to look at it and go, let's see if this is a temporary solution. Let's see if the grass really is greener, or we're going to get a good look in and go, oh my God, what was I thinking? I want to go over here. Or, this parent gives me a lot of leeway or no leeway. And oh my God, the rules are all different. So again, there has to be a lesser of 2 evils from the child's perspective. But really, again, what's going to be beneficial for the child? And is it going to be beneficial long term? So if it's going to be beneficial long term, then yeah, we'll probably want to go to judgment sooner rather than later. But if not, then we want to try this out, which is why I say we'll push court cases off for 3 months, 4 months. Let's see how it's happening. Oh, not working. Let's go back and let's fix it. Because again, you got to remember, in any custody case, whether it's a judgment or not, it doesn't mean it's final until they're emancipated. So we can come back into court if it's not working. So even if you enter a judgment, you can come back in certain circumstances. So we're going to try it out, see if it works. Again, whether it's going to be a temporary basis or a judgment. But yes, all too often they realize it's not as great as I thought it was going to be.
I mean, because it's just like when you first start dating someone or you're first married, they call it a honeymoon period for a reason. And you can only keep that up for so long before the reality of the situation comes out and you're like, oh, wow, wait a minute, I didn't know about this and I didn't know about that, and I'm really not that happy. So it's definitely interesting, and it's really what keeps you in business. Like all these relationships falling apart and trying to keep them together, and there's just so many moving pieces to what you do, which is why I would suggest, if anyone has an issue that they are working out in family court, whether it's about relationships or anything else, you find yourself in court, absolutely call Nicole and her team, because they seriously have great strategies. They can give you a real answer, real options that'll help you get the best outcome. and don't do it alone because, hey, even divorce attorneys use divorce attorneys. Am I right, Nicole?
Absolutely. You're stupid if you don't.
Yeah, it's so much emotions involved in what you do. So you need someone that's not in the situation to tell you what's going on. And it helps that they're also very highly trained and always continuing their education. And there's also experience, which is the most valuable teacher, I think.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot here having to do with relationships and how to repair a relationship. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any examples or any gotchas that you've seen so far? Like, this is really going to ruin your relationship, or this is really a something that helped somebody skyrocket and get those relationship results sooner.
I think the best thing I can tell you to do is know your child. Listen to your child. All too often it's, yeah, I hear you, but whatever. No, listen. Listen when they're telling you, I don't want to be touched that way. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just they don't like it. Listen to them when they tell you that, there's a problem going on. Don't dismiss it. Um, you know, yes, they're going to talk about the other parent and they're going to say those things to that other parent too. But you need to take care of your household. You need to fix your household and you really need to listen and hone in on what your child is indicating because they do have a voice. And all too often, parents are just dismissive rather than acknowledging it and going, guess what? We can all be better human beings. Let's be clear. We can all be ones, including me, absolutely. But we can all do better. And you can't do better if you're not even listening to the person that you love unconditionally. You love this person unconditionally, but you don't care what their opinion is? Think about that. Because if I love somebody unconditionally and they're telling me that something about me is broken, I want to fix that. And so should you.
And on that note, I want to thank everybody for watching. I especially want to thank you, Nicole, for coming on and sharing your sage advice with us once again. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.